Welcome back to the Postpartum Plan Podcast. This podcast is designed to support and empower you through postpartum. Whether you're expecting, in the early postpartum days, or beyond, this space is for you. I'm your host, Madison Fugere, a dedicated postpartum doula and pediatric sleep consultant, striving to help parents feel confident and supported in their parenting journey. Each week, I'm sharing practical tips and expert advice to help you navigate all the postpartum things with confidence. Well, as much confidence as you can. Let's embark on this journey together, making your parenthood as serene and supportive as possible. I'm super excited for today's podcast because I have Natalie Fay coming back to join me. We did an episode together on episode 11 called Newborn Sleep and Flexibility. You should definitely check it out if you haven't already. But today we're going to talk all about the benefits of having a sleep coach. So here we go. Let's get into it. You guys are in for a treat today. I have Natalie back. I'm so excited. Natalie was one of my first guests on here. I feel like, where were you? I'm now looking at my sheet and being like,
over a year ago.
Yeah, it was May of last year. It was episode 11, and we talked about newborn sleep and flexibility. And
Nice.
here we are. It's September of 2024, and we're back. So, Natalie's been busy, you guys. I had to track her down, and I've been busy, and she had to track me down. But I'm excited. So, the idea and thoughts that this topic are wrapped around, I think, is very interesting. Like we were just talking about a moment ago before I hit record here. Just the idea of wellness and coaches and the support systems that are out there for people, and especially when it comes to our realm, which is babies and sleep and postpartum and all that fun stuff. And so I'm excited to chat about the value of coaches, because I think people ask me that all the time. Do you get questions from people all the time being like, oh, well, I've already tried that sleep method, or I feel like I've tried everything, and you have to kind of
Yeah,
explain the value of what we do.
100%. And some people are all in from the beginning. You're like, no, take my money, tell
Right.
me what to do. And other
Yes.
people are more like, well, we've done this, we've done this method that I would be using with them anyway. But I guess my response to that is always, that's totally fair, but I like to liken it to having going to the gym and working out versus going to the gym and having a personal trainer, somebody
Yeah.
the accountability piece, I think, is what's huge. Having somebody checking in with you, and they wrote up a plan for you and they are checking in with you to see if you're following it. So it's that
Mm-hmm.
extra push for you to actually follow through and be consistent is
Mm-hmm.
what makes the difference between you trying sleep training before and then trying it again with a coach and then actually seeing results, because they are holding you accountable, and you're going to be embarrassed to tell them that you didn't do what they said.
Absolutely. I think about it all the time. I'm like, oh, and that's what I tell people, right? I'm going to text you in the morning and ask how the night went. So, it's far less likely
Yeah.
that you're going to give in and pick up your kid, which you said you weren't going to do, because I'm going to ask you about it in the morning, right? And I think it's also the
Yes.
idea, it's the accountability, but I think there's also an aspect to the coaching of the sleep training for my clients and I, at least, and I think you would agree that it's not just the accountability, but it's the ability to message them throughout the day and ask the pop-up questions and the reassurance, I think, that comes along with things. Because I think when you're doing any
Yeah.
type of sleep training or something that you're not fully familiar with on your own, it can be that questioning of yourself, right? Am I doing something right? Should I be when it's a method of sleep training where we're in and out of the room, right? I got a lot of clients being like, oh, should I go in? Should I wait?
Yep.
I can't understand what they're saying. And the coach can help with that. Or naps, they had a really bad nap this morning. When should I put them down again? Right? You don't have to do that on your
Yes.
own. And I think that guidance is huge for some people.
Yeah, I have a client right now and she texted me this morning and was like, she went down for a nap. She's been sleeping for 2 hours. Should I let her sleep until she wakes up or should I wake her up? And I think, it almost is it's so frustrating on your own as a parent to try to figure things out and then have things not work. So if you can
Right.
just offboard some of that to a coach who can tell you what to do, like give you some advising on that, it can keep your mental strength to be consistent, like fresh, because otherwise you're
Yeah.
kind of like, oh my God, like I've tried this, it's just not worth it. I'm just gonna, give in, and then you
Yeah.
you won't see results. But if you have someone that can just kind of be there for you too, and just like be going through it with you, and also like having a little skin in the game, like if you invest in hiring somebody, you're going to want to get your money's worth.
Right.
So you don't want to like
You're
invest
committed.
in a coach, yeah, and then like not listen to them, like that's like wasting your own money. So I think there's a
Absolutely.
couple ways to look at that
Yeah.
value.
No, I think that's so true. I think that
Yeah.
people either understand the value of a coach when it comes to sleep training or whatever, right? Or they don't. And I think that people, when they get to the point where they're like, okay, especially with sleep, because that's what we're talking about, right? Like when you get to the point of like, I need change, like I'm ready for it. I think a coach is like really kind of what helps you really, you know, get your butt moving, get that going and get you to see
Yeah.
that success. Cause yeah, it's sometimes it's hard to admit that like you don't know everything, especially as a parent. Like I think people try to kind of, I know my kid best, what you do, but it's nice to have
Yeah.
resources too, right?
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes, I don't remember where it came from. It's not my own words, but I love it, is I'm the sleep expert. You're the expert on your child. So like, let's work together. Like, I'm not here to tell you, you know your kiddo best. So like you can give
Right.
me some advising on that, but then I can take what you say and use my knowledge and my training on development and sleep. And then we marry that together, and that's where you see the results. So yeah, like I'm never there to like lecture a parent on how to parent their kids. Everyone has their own style. And then luckily, and there's so many ways that you can approach sleep. So that's why, pulling from my knowledge, I can kind of see, oh, I think this method would fit best with this family because this is the way that they're parenting. And like having
Right.
that together is super beneficial.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I work with families, I tell them that when they fill out the questionnaire, it feels like they're going to be writing a book about their kid, right? Because like every kid
Yes.
is so different, every family style is different, parenting style. Like you have to really adapt to make sure that it does match what people are looking for. So I think that
Yeah.
that is so huge. Now I know you wanted to also kind of touch upon just kind of like wellness and how our kind of culture is waking up to that. So I'd love for you to kind of like, yeah,
Yeah.
touch base on that too.
Yeah, well, like as you mentioned, I have been busy. Like it's not just the cliche, oh, I'm so busy. And the reason for that is because I co-founded a baby expo with another woman who works in the postpartum space that focuses on wellness. So like
Hmm.
we take the traditional baby expo, which is, like all the stuff you need, the high chairs, the car seats, and which you totally need for sure. But we also like added in all of the services and products that could support wellness. So like sleep consultant or a lactation consultant or like, things that you don't realize you need as a new parent until you're like struggling.
Right.
So I think, and we ran a couple events and we've had a really like once people get to the event, they're like, oh my gosh, like this was awesome. I met so many people. I got so many questions answered. But like they didn't like it's kind of like we have to like get people to realize that prioritizing their wellness is possible and something
Yeah.
they should do. And I feel like that's like a larger cultural shift that we're seeing right now. Like it's kind of trendy, if you look like on social media to like talk about being in your wellness era or, drinking a green drink and like, yeah, it's trendy, but I also think it's kind of sticking and taking
Right.
hold and people are realizing that like there are things like you don't have to just suffer through anything that's, not good for your physical, mental, spiritual well-being. So, like the space of coaching is becoming like way more prominent and that's even like a career thing that,
Yeah.
people for me myself like, I didn't really ever think I'd end up in the coaching space and it wasn't like a track that was available to me when I was in school, but just kind of like with the, my interest and where my career has gone, I've fallen into it because there definitely is a need. And I think
Yeah.
just kind of trying to get that message out there more. And then in our space is, the postpartum and parenting space is just sort of trying to shift the way people think about it. Like the cliche, it takes a village, is so true. Like that's the best way to approach
Yeah.
parenting, and not only your family and friends, but there are definitely people out there, doulas, sleep consultants, even like the early learning, like the kid, the childhood center that you like the teachers, they're all part of it. And
Right.
that's so important.
Absolutely. And I think that, the idea of this whole wellness thing can be I think used to be so like earthy crunchy, right? Of like, it has
Right.
to be like these people that eat these specific things or live this specific life. And I think it's
Yeah.
becoming more of like a term in a way now that's kind of more varied in its use, right? So like
Yeah.
wellness for somebody could be that, or wellness for somebody could be hiring sleep support so that their family is getting better sleep, or it could be, hiring an occupational therapist to help their family function better, right? Like there are
Yeah.
things I think in all different aspects of like mind and body that can include this kind of like wellness idea. And
Yeah.
so I think it's so cool because that really kind of connects with the idea of what you were talking about with the baby expo, right? This idea of services, not stuff, which I've said a million times on this episode. If people are listening again, so sorry. But it's true,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And not to say like baby clothes are super cute and they always will be. And like
Yep.
having that, like, we're not saying like you don't need stuff. Like, yeah, buy some fun stuff, of course. But also, like, there's other things too. Even like at some of our events, we've had some like massage people, like the therapists come in and like
Yeah.
they'll raffle off like a mama wellness retreat where they like, you can go to the spa for a day and just have it like that is also part of it too.
Right,
So
right. Yes, I
yeah,
love that. And I think it's one of those things too where like it's coming around, and I think it's coming around also where people are willing to like gift those things too, right? I think that for the longest time everybody, and it's still this way, maybe it'll change eventually. Even if you don't put baby clothes on your baby registry, people show up with baby
yeah,
clothes.
for sure.
Because they're so cute. Who
Yes.
doesn't want to buy one? Fair enough, right?
Right,
But then
right.
like so then you end up with so much stuff. And so I think people are getting more to the point where they are registering for services or asking for gift cards or things like that. And I think the same kind of idea with like wedding world in a way too, right? Like I think it kind of started
Yeah.
happening there where people had like honeymoon funds or like pay for this for us or
Yes.
buy us a dinner on this or out to eat for that. And I think
Yeah.
that it's coming into other types of parties and registries. And I think the baby registry space is something that's great for that because, yeah, you can get your stuff, but you can also get your services, which will help with your whole well-being and your kind of like wellness aspect of things. And then
Yeah.
that those services exist. I think
Yeah.
that's the other thing, right? I mean, I don't know about you, but before I became a postpartum doula, I didn't know postpartum doula work was a thing. And then before I became a sleep consultant, I didn't know sleep consulting really was a thing. And
For
so now
sure.
I'm in both those spaces and I'm like, I must teach the people.
Yeah, and I think it's slowly getting more mainstream. And then like my hope someday is that like that is part of a company's benefit package where like if they have
Yes.
people going on parental leave, they have somebody that they refer to, or like I think especially younger generations, like younger millennials and Gen Z, like we're kind of demanding that in our workspaces. And
Right.
kind of like, what if you're going to work for a larger company, like what are they doing to prioritize their employees' wellness? So I think just kind of reminding people, like my takeaway too is just like reminding my clients, reminding people, like my message on social media too is just like you like pour, you can't pour from an empty cup. So like
Right.
there's all these ways to prioritize your own wellness so that you will be the parent you want to be, or the partner or the friend or whatever it is. So yeah, it's exciting. It's definitely a lot of work to be done. We're trying to kind of undo a lot of conditioning that's been super deep
Yeah.
for hundreds of years. So yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that being able to have these spaces available to people now is just so amazing. And maybe that's just because we're in space and like that's what we do. And so we see it more. Sometimes
Maybe.
I wonder that. I'm like, is it coming more mainstream or is it that like I'm in that world now, so I see it more, right? Like it's like when you get a new
Yeah.
car and then you're like, oh wait, I see that car everywhere now.
Yeah. Well, probably a little bit of both, right? Like, every client that I work with is like, I didn't even know sleep consulting was a thing, but I'm so glad we did it. So hopefully we get
Yes.
to a point where like enough people are so glad they did it that now it becomes like a thing that people are like, "Oh, yeah, let's hire a sleep consultant." Like, baby's 4 months old. Let's get this done.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know that like we've kind of touched upon, okay, coaches can be helpful, right? Like we know like wellness and hiring services are important. We know that coaches like with sleep consulting can be really helpful for that accountability part of things. Um, do you find that like there's any other things that clients come to you and say like, wow, that was really helpful that I had a coach for like those specific reasons?
Yeah, I think a lot of educating on like attachment and crying. I think there's a huge stigma out there, like it kind of in like an attachment parenting
Yeah,
resurgence these days, which of course, like developing healthy attachment with your child is extremely important. But I
right.
think there are so many voices out there and like people can kind of do a little bit of fear mongering where it's like,
Oh,
if you let your baby cry at all, like you're a horrible parent, and that just creates like this environment of like stress and like burnout almost. Like it's completely impossible to always be attending to your child's every need, and like there needs to be a little nuance there. And so just educating on that and like listening to crying and seeing it as communication and how like attachment really is more so like the overall picture of how you respond and then repair to
right.
any sort of issue, and just that consistency. It's not about keeping your child absolutely perfectly healthy and happy all the time, because that's not how life is, and they're going to have to adapt to frustrations or stressors their whole life, and that the being able to do that is a skill. So being able to like support them through that is more so your role, not being absolutely like perfect in perfection for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's also yeah, exactly that, right? Like people are so afraid to let their kids cry. And I think we have to, as sleep coaches, it's helpful when we're able to explain that to parents what it is, right? Like I think the big
Yeah.
stigma of like when you sleep train your child, you're ignoring them, right? Like the reality that we
Yeah.
know of that is that you're tuning into them. So you're listening
Yeah.
to them and you're learning about them. I mean, had multiple clients come to me after and be like, oh my gosh, like I now understand and can like comprehend what my child needs even more than I did before, right? Like I know when they're hungry versus when they're tired, right? Like I literally had a call this morning with a client who said, I can tell at this time when she wakes up that, she's crying because she's hungry, but or when then she goes to bed, she's like fussing in the bathtub and it's not because she's dreading bedtime, it's because she's tired and she wants to go to bed, right?
Yeah.
Like you can read
Yeah.
and understand them. And I think like we're starting to learn that you can tune into kids more. And I think that prior to that, we kind of just were like, oh, babies just cry. Like they just cried. Like they're probably hungry or they're just like sad, But I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
recognizing that like they have a whole slew of emotions and feelings and reactions. And so,
Yes.
understanding those rather than just jumping to conclusions can be really beneficial for everybody.
Yeah, and then you give them the space to figure that out, because if it's almost like you're projecting on them or what you think it is, and then they don't have then that's how like an unhealthy habit starts, where like they don't have the skills at all to self-soothe or like have
Right.
let themselves figure it out and fall asleep. Like if they don't have that skill at all, that's like almost doing them a disservice. It's like never letting your child learn to ride a bike without training wheels, or you're just kind of like getting in their way of
Yeah.
being completely fine. But if you're kind of it kind of goes back to the idea of like if you don't think your child is good is it's possible for them to be a good sleeper, then you can't expect them to think that. Like you
Yep.
have to model that you're confident in them and that it sleep's totally normal. It's a non-issue. Like everyone sleeps. It's fine.
Right. Right.
Instead of being like super anxious and jumping in, then the message you're sending is, oh, something is wrong with like you should be scared, or it's the wrong message.
Yeah. I think it's the idea that Also, I just half lost my train of thought as I was just like thinking these things. But yes, like, with sleep coaching, this is where I was going to go with it. I'm remembering now.
Yay.
With sleep coaching, I really love that we can say it's coaching too, because we're helping kiddos learn a new skill. So we're coaching them through a new skill, right? But at the same time, a lot of the coaching that we're doing is with parents, right? It's reframing sleep and their children and development in their brains to help them understand more. Because I think a lot of parents
Yes.
come to us saying like, "Oh, my kid like cries for hours on end." Well, maybe you're in their way. Maybe we need to step back and give them a different opportunity or a different path. Or, "Oh, my kiddo like can't fall asleep without a bottle," right? Like they can't fall asleep without a bottle, or do we need to try to change something? And so I think that people are so
Right.
afraid of change, which is fair. That's human.
Yeah.
But I think that helping parents to kind of like reframe things a lot of the time, same thing with crying, like we were talking about, when they have more education and more support and explanation, we can often kind of sometimes like fact check parents. Like, okay, are you feeling like they're nervous and scared, or
Mm-hmm.
are you nervous and scared? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of
Yes.
helping, whoops, kind of helping parents like to understand that I think is so beneficial in the sleep consulting and sleep coaching aspect of things.
100%. Yeah, it's our job is we're coaching parents too. Like it's not just we're coaching them and by extension their kids are benefiting. It's mostly
Absolutely.
working with parents. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. I think that's so important. And I know this makes it a short episode, but I think it needs to be short and sweet because I think that that's such a good point. And we know like sleep training and sleep coaching is individualized, right, for every family. But I think that like the big idea behind what we wanted to talk about today is that, right? It's that there are so many benefits to it, right? And being able
Yes.
to get what you need out of a sleep situation, and a sleep coach can kind of do that for you, which is amazing.
Right. And just the notion to if you find yourself stuck in a spiral or and things aren't getting better, to have the inclination to reach out and to hire
Yes.
someone. Just like you would if, something in your house was like broken and like you wouldn't suffer
Right.
through like it should really be the same thing. Like and so the value of a coach and wellness and knowing that it is possible to really thrive and sometimes like parenting was never meant to be done on its own and sometimes you just need to bring
Yeah.
someone else in who it is their job to help you through that.
I love that. Parenting has never meant to be on its own. Geez, that one hit hard, Natalie. Nice
No.
job.
Yeah.
It's
I
true.
try.
It's true. It's that
Yeah.
village idea, and it really, really is. And it's so hard for people to find those nowadays. And I think that people need to also remember that, a village can look different for everybody. It doesn't have to be family and neighbors. It can also be professionals and support people. Because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, we want your kids to be sleeping and we want you guys to be happy too,
Yes.
right? Like we're
All
part
of
of
the
that
above.
village. I love it.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Yes.
that's awesome. And I am super excited because, like we said, it's been a while since you've been on here. And so I'm excited to kind of reshare your information with everybody. So it'll be in the show notes below. And Natalie has
Great.
also mentioned that she would do a special like 2 for 1. So if you've got two kiddos or a few kiddos that need some support, she has some deals running for that too. So you can check her information out in the show notes below. And definitely check out, the expos that she helps put together as well, because if you're nearby, you should go. Go for me since they're not
Yes.
near me.
Yeah, well, our goal is to go to more and more cities. So hopefully
Love
one day
that.
we will be near you. Yeah.
That would be amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you for coming
Yeah.
back and joining me. It's been a
Yes.
blast.
It was so good to chat with you.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Postpartum Plan podcast. I hope that today's episode brought you support, relatability, and valuable insight. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave a review and share with any of your prenatal and postpartum friends and family. Your feedback helps us reach more parents seeking support. And if you're looking for additional resources, please feel free to connect via Instagram at Serene Moments Doula for constant information, tips, and tricks, or check out my website, www.serenemomentsdoula.com. See you next week.